For months, I bore the heavy, grinding burden of her complete disregard. Each caring text I composed, every meal I carefully arranged, every tender act of love was answered with quiet dismissal, flimsy reasons, or flat-out refusal. I observed how she beamed at strangers, chuckled over trivial matters, and acted as if I were merely an afterthought in her world. The pain was real, but beyond that, it brought a sharp awareness I had never known. I had poured myself out without end to a person who no longer treasured me, and I was done permitting it. My emotions rejected any clash. Instead, they called for a decisive step, one that was straightforward yet profoundly impactful. I decided my non-existence would carry more force than any spoken plea. When the morning of our special day dawned, I held firm. No messages, no bouquet, no thoughtful celebration. The home remained strangely hushed, disturbed only by the faint buzz of the city beyond the walls. She had grown accustomed to my yielding, convinced that my affection was boundless and selfless, always prioritizing her ease over my own worth. This time, however, there was no yielding, no soothing, and no pursuit. I allowed the hours to slip by, quietly feeling the mounting unease as it built, aware that emptiness can impart truths more powerfully than heated disputes or emotional appeals. As dusk fell, her irritation erupted. Mara burst into the space, cheeks red, gaze fierce, her tone breaking as she demanded, "Where have you been? How could you overlook our anniversary?" I stayed steady, offering no fury or justification. I simply remained composed, permitting her outburst to collide with the tranquility I projected. There was an intense strength in that quietness, a subtle command she had never witnessed. She had anticipated desperation, remorse, or desperate chasing. None arrived. "I'm right here," I replied gently, my serenity carrying a depth that words alone could not convey. "In the very spot I've occupied day after day while you overlooked me, pushed me away, and dismissed my commitment as unimportant." Her expression shifted, her restless intensity wavering as the reality sank in. I understood then that quiet could outweigh noise. It compelled introspection, required acknowledgement, and imposed responsibility in ways no debate ever managed. She had braced for a fight, not this gentle revelation. Now she stood vulnerable, compelled to confront a reality she had dodged for too long. She attempted to respond, but her voice faltered. Her lips parted and shut repeatedly, stumbling in frantic efforts to seize back dominance. But it was futile. The accumulated dismissal she had inflicted, the prolonged chill she had maintained, all flooded back in an instant, engulfing her. At last, she recognized that my steadiness was not frailty, but purposeful resolve. I had persisted. I had observed. And now I permitted her to experience the complete impact of her behavior. Her anxiety intensified, her speech trembling as she struggled to justify it. I never intended. The defenses rang empty, feeble attempts to mask extended disregard. I stayed silent. I offered no rebuttal. I let the calm of my being do the talking. Every passing moment acted as a reflection, showing her errors and the outcomes she had evaded. She had viewed my devotion as an unbreakable cushion, infinite and lenient. She had miscalculated. My withdrawal had turned into an unavoidable teaching. She sank into the closest seat, fingers clutching the arms as though anchoring herself. The unspoken command filling the air felt oppressive, and she perceived it clearly. She had judged me entirely wrong. She assumed I would plead, implore, endlessly seek her favor. Instead, she encountered someone who had recovered his self-respect, who had weathered her dismissal, and who now remained resolute, wordless, and immovable. Tears welled in her gaze, her mouth quivered, and a single realization echoed within her. She had gravely misjudged me, and in that instant, it extracted a heavy price. Eventually, she breathed my name, so faint it was scarcely heard, laced with remorse and urgency. I held back my reply. I allowed her to dwell in the gravity of her decisions, the extent of her apathy, and the finality of the lines she had overstepped. In that hush, she comprehended the transformation in me. I was no longer willing to tolerate being sidelined, and my tolerance had boundaries she had surpassed ages ago. Her regret, though sincere, could not erase the insight my measured, intentional withdrawal had already instilled. As night drew to a close, Mara remained hunched in the seat, rattled and shattered, her feelings laid bare, her ego dismantled. I stayed poised and moved by her, letting the quiet convey more than any dispute possibly could. She absorbed a painful reality. Affection lacking esteem is hollow. Endurance without validation is squandered, and limits violated time and again require repercussions that cannot be undone. I had expressed it all without elevating my tone, imparted wisdom without drama, and reclaimed authority over an existence she once thought she directed. The following dawn, the home was hushed once more, and I departed for my day with a serene conviction, certain that withdrawal, restraint, and composed strength resonate more deeply than any raised voice. Mara, abandoned to her sorrow and the stark awareness of what she had forfeited, at last understood the influence she had disregarded for so long. And for the first time in ages, I experienced liberation. Not rage, not resentment, but a calm triumph, rooted in the certainty that my existence, my withdrawal, and my self-worth had communicated more forcefully than language ever could.